joining us to share his thoughts on last night's debate and what it means for Trump 2020 and the Republicans moving forward. The Deputy Press Secretary for the RNC, our good friend Mike Joyce, joining us here on the program. Mike, good morning. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, Chad. Thanks for having me. Doing all right.
Good. Glad to have you on the program. Mike, I know you were watching last night and you were watching the previous night. What do you take away? What did you take away from the previous two nights' Democrat debates?
Well, cynically, I'd say I think Marianne Williamson was the winner. But, on the serious side, I think, I think we all saw what we expected. It was going to be a full-blown display of socialism. You saw it both nights. It was interesting watching them talk about the government takeover of healthcare in Michigan. There was a poll in Michigan last week that said they overwhelmingly reject the Bernie Sanders plan. And, of course, I say the Bernie Sanders plan. The Kamala Harris plan is no different. She's just using a magic wand and pixie dust for hers by saying, people can keep their private health insurance and taxes won't go up for anybody. So, I feel like we've heard this one before already, but it's pretty obvious the taxes are going to go up for everybody. But it was a full display of socialism last night. And even Michael Bennet on stage told them, hey, guys, I don't know if you know this, but you're going to kick a lot of people off their private health insurance if you go through with this plan, and it's going to tax people to the tune of $30 trillion. So even 2020 Democrats recognize just how ridiculous their policies are. But, yeah, I think it was pretty scary. Of course, the first night was more of the Civil War display. I think you saw people who used to be called moderate Democrats in the Democrat Party basically just get shushed or shut down by some of the other candidates on the stage. And, of course, last night they just went after each other's record. And all I could think about when we were talking about with Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden, they love to talk about criminal justice reform and how they're going to do all these grandiose things. But, President Trump has actually gotten things done. He's gotten the bipartisan criminal justice reform bill, the First Step Act, already passed. So, it was a lot of pandering last night, I think. But at the end of the day, I think the American people were horrified by what they saw. I think they're going to reject the socialist policies. And my goodness, Chad, I hope we only have one debate by the time we get to the third one. I don't think I can do another two-night or
yeah, I know. They need to pare this thing down to one night and 2 hours. The 3-hour marathon is just it's way too much. And, Mike, I think one of the most common phrases that came out of the last two nights, especially when it came to healthcare, those are Republican talking points. And it's funny that the Republican talking points are just called facts when it comes to if you're going to have this Medicare for all, universal health care, magic wand health insurance for everybody, people's taxes are going to go up. And I guess I'll give Bernie some credit here because at least he finally admits that. No one else seems to want to admit that if you're going to have Medicare for all, everyone's taxes are going to go up to pay for it, and now that's called a Republican talking point.
Yeah, it's incredible. For a while there, at least in the first half of the debate, I thought that Republican talking points were the winner of the debate because they keep mentioning it. Yeah, and it was just bizarre because every time they would mention it, Julian Castro gets up and says, open borders is nothing more than a Republican talking point. Sir, do you realize you want to tear down existing border walls, decriminalize illegal immigration? I mean, that is, if there was a definition of open borders, I think that would be it. So, they just want to welcome anyone in. They want to give free health care to illegal immigrants that are in the country. And I think the American people, especially Texans, understand that we're on pace for over 1 million illegal immigrant apprehensions at our southern border this year. And there is a legitimate crisis going on at the border not too far from where y'all are. So, if that's the message they're going to be pushing, they can call it Republican talking points if they want, but I think the American people, like you said, Chad, would just call them facts. So, they're in for a rough go-around if they continue pushing policies that, at least in every state I've looked at, it says that the folks that are going to be voting don't accept these radical policies that they're proposing. And I saw another poll that said 69% of swing voters said that socialism is a toxic brand for them. But nonetheless, they continue to push these things, and you saw it again last night.
Do you think the eventual nominee for the Democrats, is it going to be someone that embraces this Democrat socialism that Bernie Sanders sells?
They're going to have to at this point because what used to be fringe outside the mainstream, Bernie Sanders even admits, is now the mainstream of the Democrat Party. So we're only on the second debate here. We're not anywhere near Iowa yet for the caucus. So by the time we get to a general election, whoever wins will be on record supporting such a far left agenda that I don't know how you can come back to the center and try to compare and contrast yourself with President Trump and all the things he's been able to do in the face of unprecedented Democrat obstruction and a 2-year, $35 million special counsel. So if they really want to go in to the 2020 presidential election with this radical agenda, then I think it'd be pretty easy to say we're going to have 4 more years of President Trump at this point.
Visiting with Mike Joyce with the RNC. Mike, to be honest, if I had to declare a winner from last night or the previous night's debate, I would say it's President Trump and the Republican Party, just because of everything that we've been talking about. I mean, this is a party that continues to not lurch, speed down the leftist highway at an ongoing rate that, you look at some of these so-called moderates that were on stage, they're bewildered. They can't believe they're on the same stage as some of these folks. And they're, the so-called moderates are polling at about 0%. They got no shot. They're not going to be in the next round of debates. The last 2 nights have been, in my opinion, a great ad for the Republican Party and for Trump 2020 reelect.
Absolutely. I'd love to call it an in-kind contribution, but I don't know where you put that on a FEC filing report. But, yeah, I think to your point, there's a lot of good things that we can point to and clip out of these debates and say, no, this is what Democrats want. This is what they're proposing. We don't have to call them Republican talking points anymore. We can just call them facts now. And look at how far this Democrat Party has truly come. You have the founder of BET, Bob Johnson, saying, as a centrist Democrat, I can't get on board with where the direction this party's gone in and where this party's headed right now. It's just not for me. And I've spoken to independent voters around the country who say, Mike, I don't like maybe every single tweet that President Trump does. I don't like everything he says, but I can't argue against this economy, and I can't argue against the direction he wants to take the country in comparison to what the Democrats are trying to do right now. These are toxic policies that people don't even want. The rabid base might want it, and it might help get a few extra votes in the Iowa caucus or in the early state primaries. But, at the end of the day, in a general election, with the results President Trump has been able to deliver, that's going to be a losing message without question going into next year. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens between now and the first when we get to Iowa. But, I'm wondering who's going to be there. Kirsten Gillibrand didn't really seem to want to say last night that she has any interest in making the country better, but she did want to let you know that she wants to get to the third debate stage in her closing remarks.
That's
so,
right.
That seems to be where they're at right now is, forget about the country and forget about doing anything, but at least hopefully we'll be on the third debate stage. And, the other part that really bugged me about last night is you're in Michigan, which happens to be an auto industry juggernaut up in the state. They didn't once mention the USMCA, but Joe Biden did care to mention that he's going to eliminate all fossil fuels, which, that's going to put a lot of Texans out in the Lubbock area out of business. I know that much. And, a lot of other folks as well. And you're going to kill the auto industry in Michigan if you do that, too. Where we're going to get all of that energy and what we're going to do about automobiles is beyond me. But, apparently Joe Biden really wants to have the most progressive record on stage. And he tried to do it again last night. But, I think the American people saw even when he first got on the debate stage, it was over before it even started for Joe Biden. When you go up to Kamala Harris and say, hey, take it easy on me tonight, kid. Yeah. I think we all saw that it was over. So once again, President Trump had the right nickname to call him Sleepy Joe.
All right. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, because, listen, I think the folks who are paying attention have a completely different view of how this election is shaping up than the regular average folks who are, getting ready to put their kids back in school. They're going on last minute vacations. When you see these statewide polls that are done that show Elizabeth Warren and President Trump polling, very, close, or within 5 points of each other. And it seems like all of these polls, just about every single Democrat polls well against the president right now. Is this a fact of, we keep on seeing polls that are wrong? We saw it back in 2016. We're probably going to see it again this time. Or is it just a lot of uninformed voters right now who don't know just how far left the Democrats have gone?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a slight pause for concern, and I think we need to look at it and say, what is it that voters are looking for heading into 2020? What are the things that we need to showcase, because we're in a full-blown war of information these days. The Democrats' messaging on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, they're basically lying to the American people straight up. trying to tell middle-class Americans that they didn't get a tax cut. So we have to fight that message, and I think we need to remind people, hey, President Trump did give you a tax cut. He did put more money in your wallet, not necessarily the rich out there, but 82% of middle-class Americans around the country received some kind of tax cut. The average tax cut varies from around $1,400 to $2,000. So I think we just need to go out and continue to show people that President Trump has delivered. And to your point, Chad, also, I don't think a lot of people are paying attention right now. It reminds me of the 2016 poll I saw down in Texas that said Hillary Clinton is in the margin of error in the great state of Texas. Well, we saw that wasn't true on Election Day, but those articles are going to come again this year because the mainstream media loves to say that Texas is turning blue. It was Wendy Davis and the Castro brothers in 14, Hillary in 16, Beto in 18, and it's going to be whoever the nominee is this year in 2020 because it won't be whoever the nominee is against Senator Cornyn. So, they love to use these same talking points, but at the end of the day, I don't know, Chad.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Mike Joyce, Deputy Press Secretary for the RNC. Always a pleasure to have you on the program. We'll visit with you later on.
Always a pleasure, Chad. Thank you.
Have a good one. It's Mike Joyce with the RNC.